Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Lorenzo Molinari. I'm the Director of Education for the Global Real Estate Education Network. And with me today, I have John Christian. John, who is coming to us from England today, every day as he lives in England. So he is both an actor and also an expert on a number of topics that deal, I would say, very, very much with the human soul. Mm-hmm. And our topic today is going to be the topic of intuitive intelligence. And so first, welcome, John.
Thank you, Andre. That's nice to be with you all.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I want to get right at it. I have to say I had the opportunity to explore the website and do a little bit of reading. And there's a test. We'll talk about the quiz that you have on the website, but I want to start right out and ask you, the most basic question of all is, what do you mean by intuition? So when we talk about this intuitive intelligence, what do you mean when you say the word intuition?
Well, to me, it's actually a higher faculty of our conscious intelligence, or you could say it's an intuitive awareness that seeps in for some of us time to time, and for the developed person is there fairly consistently, if not consistently.
Okay. And so you would say it's there for every person, but some people have it at different levels then.
It's our birthright. And in fact, I would say that it is our true intelligence as opposed to what we refer to as intelligence nowadays.
Wow, that's pretty profound. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, I had the pleasure of visiting your website, which is www.lifebalanceportal.com. That's lifebalanceportal.com. And I took the intuition quiz, which I found to be very interesting. Mm-hmm. The results of my answers indicated that I'm a level 3 as regards creative intuition, 3 out of 4. The very fact that these levels exist seem to suggest that different people have different levels of intuition. Now, you said that we all have it. Is this true? And if so, why? Why would I rate as a 3 and maybe somebody else is a 4, somebody else is a 1? There's a lot of questions wrapped in there.
Absolutely. Well, in my experience, and that's a broad spectrum of experience now, in looking at this from children that have learning disability but high faculty of intuitive awareness and intelligence, and also living with indigenous people and studying with spiritual masters. What governs that is actually the lifestyle of the individual, which the whole package is included in that. So the way we think, our choice of beliefs, our emotional choices of response and reaction, our physical well-being, our diet, our ability to have conscious breathing. So the whole package is within that question, or the answer to that question. And it really depends on where the individual focuses their life force.
I'm going to just kind of see if I can draw a parallel here. I had, some years ago, I had the opportunity to visit my father's homeland of Italy. Mm-hmm. And one thing that struck me very strongly there is that they have a very different pace of life than the typical American pace, which tends to be very frantic. We work a lot of hours. We're all about being busy. And when we're done with our day, we tend to collapse on the couch at home, watch a few hours of television, and then call it a day. Yeah. And what struck me is when I was in Italy, and of course this is in Rome and the southern parts of Italy, which I understand have a slightly slower pace, whereas places like Milan in the north tend to have the faster, more Americanized style, if you can call it Americanized style, but certainly a faster pace. When I was there, they had a much slower pace. They tend to spend more time with people. They spend more time in conversation after work. Even the pace at work isn't this frantic sense of I have to all this list of things to get done that's impossible to get done, but I have to try anyway. I thought that they had, my impression was a better lifestyle. And I'm wondering if that busyness that I'm getting at. It could be something that really interferes with one's intuitive intelligence.
Absolutely. So it's a great question. And that's precisely why my website is called Life Balance Portal, because through my own personal experience, obviously, of in my earlier years seeking fame and fortune as a singer, actor, comedian, and pushing and charging for all of those things and attaining them to a certain level, and then finding myself often in a dressing room feeling stressed or sick with stage fright and still feeling empty and wondering what next. So that's really what made me start asking the question, is like, what is it really all about? Why are we running around like chickens with our head cut off? And which is even worse nowadays. So we're spiraling more and more into that. But for me, I've learned as a performer that the body is an instrument. So depending on the quality of our habit of thinking, depends on where the energy is focused and where the body gets up and follows. So now we have whole societies based on the pressure of you must succeed in order to feel okay and happy and secure, which actually is all a fallacy. So now we're stressing ourselves out to survive, when intuition knows actually we don't need to do that if we're really listening and tuning the body like an instrument. So using the mind in the correct way to tune with the breath, with the values of the heart, and with the correct behavior. And then the body becomes this instrument for that innate knowing of what's right. But we don't listen any longer, because of the pressures of society. Right. So it's like there's two, maybe a good way to explain this. The personality mind, or what we call the ego self, looks outwards for everything. So it's always reaching out to try and find happiness and success and achievement. What we've missed and lost the knowledge of in our cultures nowadays, which used to be there in the ancient cultures, is everything needs to be done on the inner work. So if you do the work well internally, then when the mind goes out, it carries that internal wisdom and knowledge into the marketplace. So then we create with a higher level of energy that's not just dependent on thought or emotion action. It is directly inspired action, which actually we refer to as moments of genius. So I could actually, a quote, it's so wonderfully said by Einstein. I'll read that quote to you. Einstein said, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift."
Wow.
So that so beautifully summarizes it. And a couple of other quotes I'd like to use while we're on that from our modern day achievers and thinkers. From your side of the ocean, we have Steve Jobs, who, interestingly enough, before he became as successful as he has done, went off to meditate in India and to learn the disciplines of that kind of mind-body-spirit attunement. He said, "Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you truly want to become." And it does take courage. Then Bill Gates said, "Often you have to rely on your intuition." From my side of the water, Princess Diana said, "Only do what your heart tells you to." And then we have Marilyn Monroe, who said, "A woman knows by intuition or instinct what is best for her." And we all do. We all have that knowing. We just don't stop the mind and stop the action, the busyness enough to just simply stop and know what we already know intuitively. And also I call it our natural body wisdom. So because we think so much, we're not thinking, feel the body, notice the body. What's my body telling me energetically on a cellular level about my current thinking and behavior? Am I busy? Am I stressed? Am I rushing? Where's my energy going? Do I breathe properly? We don't stop. we don't stop to do that purely, because of social pressure nowadays, which is running away with us. And unfortunately, we are following it.
I think it's very easy to do. It's almost like a current in a river that once you're in it, it's very difficult to swim against it, to kind of like make decisions that are, counter-cultural or, counter what the herd, how the herd is moving along. Yeah,
absolutely. That's so true. And if we don't really nowadays stop and reassess and take a really good look at the fact that it's all energy, proven by quantum physics now. We are a swirling mass of electrons, protons, quarks, unifying force, independent intelligence, lots of descriptions. But that's us, really, or another description for that is we are frozen light, which I think is beautiful. So as we become more self-conscious and stressed, that light becomes more restricted, light of our life force and vitality and inspiration. So if we don't pay attention and look at what we're doing to ourselves and each other and make fundamental change, we are truly like lemmings running to the edge.
Oh, I think that absolutely speaks well to it. I want to kind of get at this. We've talked about this idea of the intuition, that it's kind of an innate component of the human person. Mm. And I liked how you put it as maybe our truest intuition, our truest knowledge. Intelligence. My question is this like any other human skill that could be perfected by practice? Absolutely. Like, for example, running or weightlifting to get stronger. And if so, if you can, what would the training regimen look like to increase this ability, or to at least unleash it more?
Well, again, I'll speak from my experience, because I've learned by studying the theory and all that kind of stuff. That's not where the answer is. Great information, but it still leaves you in your head unless you're doing the physical applications required in order to tap your own intuition and therefore directly experience intuitive intelligence. So it's the experience that is the teacher. And this is where we fall short, again, mostly because we tend to think we know, and just because we think we know, we stop there. Even with some of our wisest sayings, we'll think, well, I know that. But our life is a very good example that I'm not doing that. So the ancient masters have a lovely saying which says, to know but not to do means not to know. So this is my experience. I've learned of those things. I've read of those things. I've experienced those things in my own life. I've watched, what do I do that puts me out of line with my own intuition? What do I need to bring into my life that brings me back to that? And I trained to be a yoga teacher. In the West, unfortunately, we only think it's an exercise nowadays. Whereas when you look at the heart of this thousands of year old science of integration of mind, body and spirit, you find actually the same guidelines as there is in all religions of any value. And they are simple guidelines for correct living. So proper exercise, proper diet, proper study, proper behavior, and all of the higher qualities that each of us in our own heart desires. But don't listen to it, we don't follow it in our head. We've all got one of these. I can show you. This is my little friend. We've all got one of these little guys sitting on our shoulder.
No. Yeah.
and talking to us.
It's interesting you say that we know what we need to do, but we don't do it. And I think that's very true. I mean, I don't think you'd find too many people that would disagree with the idea of taking time for exercise, for diet,
Yeah.
Diet, but doing it is another story altogether. It's like we lack the discipline to be able to kind of like make the choice to do it.
That is our shortfall. You see, it has a price. There's no question about it. You could say that intuition is actually the law of nature, or in spiritual terms, it's God's laws. They're unbreakable laws in terms of you can break them, right? But then you pay the price, because that law speaks to you through your own heart and through the cells of your body, and tries to get the mind and the habit's attention to return and listen and come back to living the simple law of body wisdom, nature, in and through your own body. So for me, the most exciting thing about the time that we live in, and the most challenging, is we have to expose one another to truth wisdom once again, so that we can understand, how does consciousness function? How do I personally operate consciousness in this physical body? How do I learn how to drive so I'm driving according to my own highest wisdom, even by learning how to be able to notice, do you know what, I know that, but I don't do it. And be honest with ourselves to go, yeah, it's true, I do know that, and I know I don't do it. So I ask my students very often, how is it possible that we can know, we can be so intelligent as to know what's right, and yet so unintelligent as to not do it?
Therein lies the rub, right there. Absolutely, right there.
So that's what I do personally. It's a journey. It's an unfolding journey, So I go to the gym every day. I'll wake up in the morning. Sometimes the body's tired and it's sore and it's lazy, but my inner wisdom says, "Come on, get yourself up, get moving, do what it requires, and you'll feel good again in this instrument." So I go. I make myself go, and I remind myself I'm always going to feel better after I've done it. And I find it doesn't only apply to the gym, it applies to every single thing. It applied when I smoked. I knew I should have stopped years ago, but I didn't listen until my body was screaming at me, stop. I knew I should become a vegetarian, and I didn't listen for a while. And then the voice got louder and louder. And then there was a point when I was actually meditating on a beach in Thailand, and this voice said, stop drinking. So I went, okay. And I stopped immediately, because I'd learned from the past.
Right.
So it is challenging to swim upstream when so many are caught in the downstream flow. But if we don't do that, where are we going to be in a few years' time?
Oh, absolutely.
Or if I say that on a more personal level, on the work I do in cancer groups, I hear the same thing. What was that all about? All that stress, all that worry, all this money, but it won't take this cancer away. And now I'm so exhausted, I don't have the energy to fight this or do this any longer. And the only thing that matters is, I hope my family can forgive me for not being there. Wow. And I wish I hadn't have said what I said. And how can I come to peace with myself?
Wow. Would you say, I'm going to pin you down here. Would you say that part of the regimen, that exercise regimen or training regimen that I refer to for intuitive intelligence, is really, it begins with taking the time to reflect?
Yes.
That's to actually stop.
Yes.
What you're doing and to really assess.
Yes.
Piece by piece.
Yes, absolutely so. It's a deep, when you really enter into it and begin to realize the value of soul searching and observing the personality and its traits and conflicts, and adjusting those patterns within yourself. If we really, really practice that and realize what we are capable of, we'd all be running in that direction, as opposed to the direction we're running away from it, actually. So, meditation, I mean, it just means concentration on a still reflective point. That's one of the ways you can say it. I've got a list of benefits here, if you'd like me to read some of them out.
Please,
from meditation. It's greater maximization of human potential, lower metabolic rate, lower heart rate, reduces breathing rate. It dramatically increases mental alertness, changes the brain waves, releases dopamine, improved physical health, intuitive insight, inspiration and self-realization, profound inner peace and relaxation.
Wow. Because half those things are foreign language, certainly to an American culture. You know, the inner peace thing is a major problem. It's a major problem.
Yeah, but again, you know, this is great that we're having this conversation here. I really appreciate this opportunity that we can, you know, share this with your people and hopefully sow some seeds that will change that a little bit. And eventually, when we all apply ourselves correctly and realize what we've been throwing away, start picking the ball up again.
I think so. You know,
we'll use the whole media, and as it was in ancient Greece and Egypt and those cultures, you know, everything reminded you all day long, the dance, the art, the writing, the hieroglyphics. It was all the story of the soul and the soul's journey and the development of character, which was the mirror of the quality of soul within the individual.
Let me ask this question: is that how do you your website talks about balance?
Yeah.
How does a person pursue their business? I mean, in your case, you're still working as an actor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you balance, you know, especially in a society that wants to put you into overdrive, wants you to function with your engine, so to speak, in the red?
Yeah.
How do you achieve that life balance? You know, obviously you have to work for a living. You have to, you know, take care of your family. You have things that you need to get done. How do you do that? And then if you're able to achieve that balance, what would you see as the kind of the payoff? You know, I mean, what does that look like on the other side? I know it's strange to ask, but what does it look like? I mean,
no, that's a great question. You know, it's fundamental change from our current lifestyle. I mean, I've only got to go from my village here into London, and it's the same as you're dealing with in America, you know, but interculturally. So, you know, this is such an important question. Is what price am I willing to pay for true well-being and true happiness and a true sense of, do you know what, I can really live with myself. I like my own thinking. I like my own beliefs and behavior and attitudes. In fact, I even like myself if I just royally screwed up, but I had the awareness to go, do you know what, I screwed up there. I need to learn from that, pick myself up and move on. So it looks like that package. It's the art of learning how to use the mind in that way, with self-observation. I'm constantly juggling between film work, singing, coaching and things like that. And the way I often do that is I'll give a priority to a commitment. So if I say I'm committed to a training program, and we're not too far down the line, and a film job comes in that's worth considerably more to me for the period of time I would spend. If I have time, then I'll speak with the people I'm working with and say, are you comfortable if we shift this around? So I work on the practical levels, finding balance in that way. If it doesn't work for the others, then I'll stick to my first commitment.
It's an honesty about saying what you can actually achieve, what you can actually do without running that life within the red zone, basically, where you're running your engine, you know, to no profit. I would think as I'm listening to this, it sounds like you have to live a very intentional life. Which I don't think is a bad thing, by the way. I'm not criticizing that at all. Yeah. But I just think that this doesn't happen on accident. So in other words, you don't achieve this life balance. Certainly in our societies, it doesn't happen without intentionality.
Well, let's thin that down a little bit. We can find balance in the moment, and that's the most important thing.
Well, that's a good way of putting it.
And that's the practice, really, that's most important. We tend to think of the big picture, and I've got to find balance in the big picture. But actually, it's much more simple than that, which is why in the scriptures it says, to yourself be true, and the truth will set you free. Right? So we've forgotten who we really are. So if we stop, listen, breathe, feel, and notice, what's the difference between the me that it wants to get up out of this chair and rush off and chase another job or another, to the me that's going, please just stop, breathe, take a break, have the courage to do that for a minute. And then through that simple step, we begin a good practice of retraining the mind and the emotions and the habits of the body and the lifestyle, because they're really like wild stallions, because it's habit and we're creatures of habit. The habit wants to pick us up against our own best sense of integrity and pull us into action again. So, it's true what the masters say. There's only one battle. Guess who it's with? And there's only one enemy, and guess who it is?
Yes, the person looking at you in the mirror.
Yeah. So as you understand that, as I understand it more and more, I just find it great fun to watch my habit patterns and go, whoa, whoa, body, whoa, mind, whoa, energy. Right here, we're not doing that right now. And I want you to learn thoughts, thinking mind. I don't want you to think like that right now. Well, so what am I going to think instead? I don't want to be feeling like this right now. So what do I really want to feel right now? I want to feel good. So how do I know I want to feel good? And yet at the same time, no, I'm not stopping to allow myself. If that's not a lesson that I have brought upon myself in a very personal, up my own nose way in this instant of time. So supposing I can learn from myself and be that smart and that aware and look at that process and go, hey, it's only my personality or my ego's habits that's trying to pull me back into something I know is not the wisest thing for me to be doing with my energy right here, right now.
I think you've laid your finger on something very important. It's that word ego.
Yeah.
That somehow I think about myself, as I'm honest with myself, is that sometimes you look in the mirror and you want, people to think better of you. You want to be raised in stature in other people's opinion of you. And so your ego forces you to act, do this and to do this and get involved in this and take on this responsibility. That is more than what you really want.
Yes.
Or even is healthy for you to take on in light of all the other things that you're doing. But that word ego, I think, is really,
Well, so the wise ones of the East say, the ego is the only thing we're ever struggling against, because that's free will, if you like. So, but I think it's a divine setup. It's like, how are we ever going to know who we really are and what we're truly capable of if we didn't have something very close and personal to wrestle against? And if that's my ego, and if I can smarten up and realize that it's only me doing this to me, and my thoughts, my beliefs, my behavior are showing me I'm not listening to myself right here, right now. I'm not being true to myself.
Yes.
Right here, right now. So that's really like putting the brakes on. And sometimes you have to take the deepest breath you've ever taken in order to get the mind to come in and connect with the emotional body in order to get the physical body to realize I'm asking you to do something completely different energetically right here, right now.
Goes back to that word intentionality again. It really requires, that active kind of like self-awareness, paying attention to what your body's telling you, to what your own heart is telling you.
It's so subtle. It's like making a fine wine of yourself in a quality of energy, internally and externally. So what we call ego is just an energy field that we emit from ourselves based on our current state of consciousness. For most people, we are not conscious of who we truly are. We're only conscious of this little created self that you've just described very well. The one that constantly has to seek all rightness and approve itself and all of that, because it doesn't know it's all right already. Yes. Where the intuitive mind knows, you know what, you're okay already. You don't have to do any of that to feel okay when you know how to be true to yourself.
Right.
That's the dilemma.
It sure is. It sure is. All right. So, realizing that this might be somewhat personal, I ask you to forgive me in advance for asking. Could you describe an experience of intuition and what it feels like from your perspective? I guess what I'm trying to get at here is the experience of feeling intuition so that we can learn to better recognize when our intuition is being activated. And I realize it's probably somewhat personal and different for everybody, but at the same time, my instinct is that there's probably enough similarity to be able to speak about it in a general sense.
What appears to apply to all of us is a similar function anyway. When you refine the mind through practices of meditation, relaxation, proper breathing, then the mind is more available to the feeling level of intuition. So we've now discovered through latest research that we have what they're calling a second brain in our stomach. A BBC report was saying that there's over 100 million brain cells in our gut. So new research is revealing that in some ways it seems that our second brain is even more influential than our logical thinking brain. So here's the key. So what does it feel like? It feels like just making a decision to think, breathe, feel, which is, in the beginning, it's not easy for people because the mind is in the habit of being so busy and so distracted. So a little simple exercise that you can practice to start feeling that gut intelligence again, or what we call gut feeling, sixth sense, is just to think, breathe, and relax the body, and then just count the breath in. Because while you're counting, the mind is having a distraction from its distractions, if you like. So if you count the breath in 1, 2, 3, hold the breath, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale. And as you exhale, it's like you consciously breathe out tension and stress from the mind and from the body. And you repeat that. Now, it takes about 20 minutes of good, relaxed, concentrated focus on the breath to get the mind to realize, oh, that's the pattern I need to be in instead of off again. So the yogis rightly call our minds the monkey mind. And it's all over the place. So it is our greatest challenge, but it can be achieved through practice. Simple little exercises like that. Wherever you are, you're always breathing anyway. The only question is, do you include within the activity of the day, right here, right now, I'm thinking about this task, but can I include within that a thought of think, relax, breathe, enjoy? So this is my little catchphrase that I use with my students: breathe, relax, enjoy. What am I here for? To breathe, relax, and enjoy. I want to enjoy whatever I'm doing.
Right.
Right. So that's one simple little exercise that you can do. And for deeper practice, there's abdominal breathing, where you actually use the tummy a bit like a bellows. In yoga, it's called Kapalabhati. So you can find instruction for that on YouTube videos and things like that, which is very powerful because it moves what the yogis call prana to the brain, where the brain's not used to getting enough life force, prana. So it makes the brain actually starts relaxing because it's receiving more prana from the solar plexus through proper breathing. These are the kind of things that I coach, or online coaching or otherwise.
It sounds like we've waded into a deep ocean in this topic in terms of ability to actually start to get our hands around it. I was going to ask, I've seen on your website that you've written a book. I placed the order. I mean, it's offered for free on the website.
Yeah.
And I placed the order for it.
Yeah.
Obviously, writing a book is a significant commitment of time and energy. And I wanted to ask you, what brought you to the process of feeling, the compulsion, the desire to write about this topic?
Well, firstly, part of my own healing process. Because I'm still erasing memories of judgment on my capacity to do such a thing.
Okay.
Even from all those years ago. I know rationally, logically, all it is just a program. But when that program is deep within the cells, the body remembers patterns and slips back into resistance of not sitting down and doing it. As you well know as a writer, I'm sure. So it's, personally, it was inspired by my own intuition giving me a kick in the pants to actually pin myself down and achieve the task. And along with that is that particular topic is because of working with children nowadays who are still being wounded, mortally wounded in the development of their self-image and their character, because they're not being told from day one, do you know what? The very fact that you're breathing and alive means you are enough. So if we can draw out other talents and abilities that are simple, usable life skills, then fine. But we're telling the children, it's only safe here if you can learn this information and repeat it perfectly. And then we'll tell you how wonderful you are and how perfect you are. But if you can't, we're going to keep telling you there's something wrong with you. Right? And then we wonder why we've got, in England now, 5-year-olds on antidepressants.
No.
Because currently we have a predominantly unenlightened education system that is not looking at true intelligence. What is it really? How do we reach in and draw that out through the child? How do we actually keep it alive because they're born with it?
Right.
And teach them to use their senses in order to channel that inner wisdom and knowledge, which is innate, instinctive.
Again, this is a classic case of going against the flow in terms of where the direction is, because it's so, the education system, like everything else, is driven, by these kind of artificial waypoints of achievement. Like here in the United States, it's very test driven.
Yeah, it is.
I have a son, getting ready to graduate from high school here, and he's told me repeatedly that everything is directed to the tests. It's all about preparing. Everything that you're even teaching is aimed at so that they will do well on the test. Yeah. And what's tragic about that is that, in a lot of ways, they've kind of sapped the focus on learning, the joy of learning. I know that's kind of a radical idea,
Well, we're
Like
back
you
to
might
the
actually enjoy learning about something.
Yeah, we're back to the Einstein quote.
Right.
You know, we've forgotten the gift, and we're just exercising the servant, but in the wrong directions, in the wrong application. You know, so you know, that's what my life has taught me. I always knew that there was nothing wrong with me, and I wasn't a bad learner. I just learned differently, but the system didn't recognize that. So I learned imposed judgments instead, and built my character in a volatile way around the mistaken choice to believe that they were right and I must be wrong. And of course you do that as a child. What else are you going to do? So we don't. I work with teachers nowadays. The teachers are born from that same system, so of course they teach the same way, and they're suffering too. They're afraid to actually let go of their rational, logical, deductive, intellectual process to realize that there is a greater intelligence out of which we do all of that.
Right.
You know, so equally they are, if you like, subconsciously scared. If my student doesn't repeat what I've taught them perfectly, people will think there's something wrong with me, because they don't know they're all right with or without that knowledge.
You know, as I'm listening to you talking about this, I'm thinking to myself, I feel like there's a direct application and impact for business and in many different fields, is that if a person is constantly focused on what they're being told to do,
yes,
what the herd or the current is, where it's taking them,
yes,
and they don't ever take this time to center, to reflect, to relax, to be present in the moment, the intuition can never lead them to innovation. You're not going to get innovation that way. That's not how it works. It's like you need to have, you know, to be successful, ironically, it's not about just churning out more work. No. It actually is about reflecting on what it is that you're doing, and then so that you can see that what you're doing may not be the most effective way of approaching something. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the innovation comes in business. And I think that this, you know, this approach, a more measured, balanced, to pull the word out of your website, balanced approach, I think in the end, it actually gets us to where we would prefer to go. And we have a better place that we're arriving rather than this constant like stampede towards a cliff, you know. It's like, it's just more work for the sake of more work, more paperwork, shuffling this to that, and, you know, but we're not producing something of with staying power, with value, you know.
No, and it can't last because it's the wrong energy application. You know, the only things that last when you really look at that in your own life is where your heart was included, or the wisdom and the knowledge of the heart. Wherever the heart is excluded, there's not sufficient correct energy coming through the body as an alchemical instrument in order to create with all of the levels involved: mind, emotions, behavior, all serving the same purpose, if you like. You know, and then we become inspired creators that, as we've seen in history, you know, we can build cultures based on phenomenal knowledge and wisdom that we have lost. You know, and we have to look at that and seriously go, what are we doing to ourselves? Not just ourselves as humans, but what are we doing to the collective whole of nature? And how is it that we can have become so numb in our physical senses to our higher senses that actually let us know appropriate behavior, not with just human beings, but with all of life and all of nature?
Yeah, it's hard to respond to that. I mean, because that's exactly, yes. I mean, it's a detachment, a profound detachment from ourselves and everything else. I think when we're detached from ourselves,
yeah,
detached from, there's a ripple effect in every aspect of our life, in every aspect of our life. And connect with anything or anyone.
Yeah, and it's getting worse. I mean, it's like, I go on the film set now, you can't talk to anybody because they're all looking into their phones. It was really funny because we were doing a 16th century movie recently and everybody's in that clothing of the time. And I looked down the line in a break and everybody was on a phone. Wow. In that clothing. And I thought, well, this is a really interesting view. So, yeah, so much could be said, and so much still needs to be said in us using the media and all of our talents and abilities to just get this information back, and above all, to want to have the courage to become a living example. And that's, for me, that's what we're here to do. We're here to test ourselves to know the difference. Am I listening to the true me, or just some conditioning I've picked up along the way? And who is the real me? And how do I learn to be true to that?
Well, it won't happen by accident. That's certain. And just from listening to you. John, I thank you for your time today. As you said, there's just really scratched the surface of this kind of topic. But I definitely appreciate your time and for taking the chance to discuss this intuitive intelligence with us. And we look forward to further future conversations.
It's only a breath away, but the mind has to bring it there. That's all.
Absolutely.
It's actually so simple, but made so complex by a very creatively distracted mind. It's really great to do this with you, and for whoever watches this, I sincerely hope that whatever we've shared here today makes a profound difference for you in your lives and inspires you to take the time to do what you know is right and your body's telling you if you listen.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.